Hello everybody, I'm Kate Cass. Welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. So, we can all agree that Sonic has broken the video game movie curse, right? I cannot tell you how gratifying it is to see one of my favorite franchises thriving like this, especially after being the subject of ridicule for so long. It's not an exaggeration to say that Sonic movies not only show the potential and appeal of adapting video game stories for the big screen, but saved the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise from falling into obscurity. Everything Sonic related has only gotten better since that first movie came out. Well, except for aspects of the fan base, but one step at a time. But it's one thing that your favorite game series is being treated well. Where it can get scary is when they adapt your favorite game. When I reviewed the first Sonic movie, I made a list of things I wanted to see in the sequel, with the wishful thinking that Shadow would be teased in a credit scene. I mean, movie 2 was gonna have Tails and Knuckles, so Shadow was the next logical step, right?
I mean, logically, guys.
And lo and behold, the second movie comes out, this is the very last thing shown on screen, and I'm trying to be excited a very normal amount in a crowded opening weekend theater in the heart of New York City. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 had already proven that they could make the Sonic universe feel like a big cinematic experience, so the confirmation that now we'd be telling Shadow's story took my breath away. But I also realized that it could simultaneously be the easiest and most difficult story for them to tell yet. Where the first movie was a completely original story, and the second movie took the loose plot threads from the Genesis games and fit them into a traditional 3-act structure, Shadow comes from an era of Sonic games that are much more narratively driven, with clear plot lines and ambitious story beats. There's much clearer direction for what an adaptation should be, but there's also a lot more pressure, making sure to include important plot points, do them justice when you do, and make sure what changes you'll inevitably make work with the greater whole. So many times I thought of what changes could be made to telling the iconic story of Sonic Adventure 2 in the film universe. Full disclosure, I almost made a video about my pitch because there was just so much to think about. And as trailers finally dropped and more info came out about this third film, it ran circles in my brain. I was telling people that this was my most anticipated movie of all time, and I meant it. Ever since, you've all been very curious to hear my thoughts on it, wondering when my review would be coming. I'd meant to do it much sooner, but things kept getting in the way. But now, I think it's time I reward all your patience and curiosity. Without further ado, let's dive right into Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Gun systems are hacked, releasing one of their deepest kept secrets and most powerful weapons, the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog, played by Keanu Reeves. Free from their confines and out on the loose, Sonic and the gang are called in as a last resort to take Shadow down. As they investigate further, they uncover more of who Shadow is and how the tragedies and secrets of the past could put the fate of the entire world in jeopardy. So, to start off easy, let's take stock at where Sonic and the family are at this point. We'll talk about Shadow, I promise, we're getting to it, but I think it's important to talk about this first. We got a glimpse of this new dynamic in the Knuckles series, but there were still some growing pains. Seeing them again, we see how close they are and how familiar they become with each other. Watching Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles work as both a well-coordinated team playing to each other's strengths and as bickering and playful adopted brothers is really delightful. This is the thing that can be so charming about sequels. You spend a whole story watching characters come together, and now you get the reward of watching them live a life together, when it's tough to think that they were ever apart. Even the movie is aware of how special and important this found family is, celebrating the day Sonic came to Earth when they became a family.
Happy B. Arthur Day?
You truly are one chromosome away from being a potato.
On the one hand, it's really sweet to celebrate how much Sonic changed Tom and Maddie's lives since he came here, but on the other, that's not the day they became a family. That was like 8 years later, but their heart is in the right place. Tom and Maddie being unconventional surrogate parents is kind of turned up to 11 in this movie, talking on their level, offering them advice, and being ready for any situation with welcome arms, with really sentimental moments that Sumter and Marsden really sell. Oh yeah, I'm lifting the ban on James Marsden from the last video. It blew over, nobody cares anymore, and we're cheering that he's gonna be in Avengers Doomsday, so it's fine. My favorite scene with them in this movie is when they seem so content to have normal hobbies when Sonic and the others are away, but the second they come back and ask for help with a mission, they jump at the chance. It's so refreshing and makes a lot of sense. I mean, look at this place. They did every domestic hobby imaginable, and I don't think Sonic and the others were away for a day. Turns out these two need instant adventure just as much as their kids do, and I love that. Even G.U.N seems to be going easier on them now. No longer hunting them down, but keeping an eye on them and reaching out when they need help with more eccentric situations. Aided this time by Agent Rockwell, played by Kristen Ritter. Oh, Jessica Jones is in this movie now, heck yeah. We're gonna have to come back to G.U.N later though, there's a lot to say. The camaraderie in the Wachowski household shows just how far the heart of these movies has come. After coming to this world lost and alone, Sonic now has a bigger family now than he ever has, all of which stands in stark contrast with the new Hedgehog on the block. Alright, let's talk about Shadow. Shadow is the best part of this movie to the surprise of absolutely no one, but to the relief of everyone. There are second best things in this movie, and pretty close to, but as always, Shadow reigns supreme. All hail Shadow. And that's crucial because this is the one thing the movie absolutely needed to get right. It was probably for the best that they saved Shadow until they got to a third movie because it allowed the movies to grow and get comfortable with adapting these Sonic characters, so once we get to Shadow, his challenging story can be handled as well as possible. And my god, is it ever, from the second he shows up. I feel like their main goal with this movie was to make every shot of Shadow the coolest thing your eyeballs have ever registered. They upgraded the design from the credit scene of the second movie to give him sharper features and emphasize his serious expressions. Animation-wise, his scenes might genuinely be the best these movies have ever looked. Shadow is aura farming the entire time he's on screen, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a bountiful harvest. Also, shout out to Keanu Reeves for his performance. I was skeptical about the choice, not gonna lie, but his subdued delivery works incredibly well. I'm just kind of shocked that Ask the Sonic Heroes called this like a decade ago.
Yeah, well, I sound like Keanu Reeves. Ugh.
To Silver, how do you feel that a joke you made about Shadow sounding like Keanu Reeves is actually canon?
Called it.
Well, he is from the future.
I have some prior knowledge.
When we first heard about Shadow in the movie universe, it was as this deep secret hidden deep within G.U.N's databases, always on watch but never spoken of. Only on Earth as G.U.N was wiping another Robotnik off their records. At the beginning of this movie, we find out that location was Prison Island. Hey, just like in the games. A site far off the shores of Japan and only employing about a dozen or so people to keep what's housed there as confidential as possible.
We need more guys.
That is all the guys.
But someone manages to hack G.U.N's systems and wake Shadow up. Not holding back, Shadow breaks free from his 50-year containment, takes down all the agents on the island, and races across the ocean to the city, all without uttering a word. This might be the best intro Shadow's ever had. If you're new to the franchise, you get an excellent showcase of what Shadow is capable of and what a threat he's going to be. And if you do know who he is, you're squealing at seeing Shadow use chaos control and race on the water while staring down the camera. Shadow's bulldozing power is made even clearer when he comes face to face with Team Sonic, an encounter that happens in Sonic's homeland in Japan. That's a nice touch. These three are some of the most powerful beings living on Earth right now, but it turns out to be moot because Shadow also powers through them with almost no effort. One of my big concerns introducing Shadow was that it might feel too similar to the Knuckles introduction in the previous film. Having two rivals back to back can feel like been there, done that screenwriting. While there are certain parallels between the two films, I think they deviate enough to make Shadow his own unique threat. In fact, the very first member of Team Sonic he fights is Knuckles, and he's already got a calculated method to take him on before Knuckles can get close to a first punch. Seeing what little effort it takes for Shadow to take on the biggest threat from the last movie shows how much trouble Sonic and the others are in right now.
He is much more impressive than the Hedgehog I fought previously.
Dude, I'm standing right here.
That, however, does not stop Sonic from trying to stop Shadow, resulting in this absolutely exceptional chase scene between the two of them through the vibrant, busy streets of Tokyo. One of the complaints I heard when the movies were announced as live-action hybrids is that they wouldn't be able to keep up with Sonic in a way that was exciting. While the first movie has some fun chases, it's not mind-blowing. They got a bit more ambitious with movie 2, and now they're using every tool at their disposal to make the racing segments feel quick and exciting. From the very first race alongside Sonic to the very last, every fast-paced sequence is exhilarating exhilarating and creative. It's amazing to see how far the crew who put all these together, from storyboarding to animation to VFX, has come, delivering more cinematic action and chase scenes that play to their strengths and find the right roadblocks for everyone's powers and abilities. That first chase between Sonic and Shadow is the poster child of them all for so many reasons, not least of which is that Shadow makes his getaway on motorcycle. I don't think I can emphasize enough what a shift there's been in the pop culture landscape when Shadow hopping on a motorcycle and wielding a gun, just like he did in his solo game, is met with rapturous applause in theaters across the country. Yeah, it's cool. It's always been cool, but a lot of you didn't used to think that. They made it even cooler in the movie. He can teleport with the bike and imbue it with his power to go faster. Like the first two movies, there's fan service and references across the board in this one, not just from Sonic Adventure 2. These are all over the place in this movie, so this is by no means a comprehensive list. We'll talk about more of them later, but here are some of my favorite smaller ones. There's this great moment where they hit us with this back-to-back of movie Sonic uttering the iconic opening line of Adventure 2.
Talk about low-budget flights. No food or movies? We're out of here.
Followed by Team Sonic landing in the Sonic Heroes formation. I'm pretty sure these sprites are ripped from Sonic Mania, but I could be wrong. They incorporated the Bio-Lizard as a cheesy Godzilla movie monster, and make the Chow Garden a themed Japanese cafe, which are both very cute. They also play a Japanese cover of ABC by the Jackson 5 at the cafe, and I'm wondering if that might be a nod to the multiple links Sonic has to Michael Jackson. At one point, Tom blows into a memory state to get it to work as a nod to every 90s kid who did that with their game cartridges, even though it doesn't work, except it does for some reason. It just does, don't question it.
Little trick from the 90s.
I mean, best decade ever, right?
They include a wink to that meme about how Shadow loves Latinas, which is priceless.
Gabriella should kill them both. She's not a prize to be won.
As is the addition of Knuckles' aversion to ghosts. I wouldn't call it a phobia necessarily, but he definitely gets jumpy around anything resembling a ghost.
Get a grip.
Hello! There's tons more, and like I said, we'll point them out as we go, but it's also important to look at what this movie changes. At first, Shadow only fights those gun agents and takes on Team Sonic as a means of defense. He is very resentful in this movie, but also very lost, unlike the more calculated plot for vengeance he was orchestrating in Sonic Adventure 2. But at the end of the day, the important thing to keep in mind is that this is not a direct adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2. There are a lot of similar plot developments, and they have some big key moments, but there are a lot of big pieces of SA2 that are not in this version of events. Sonic is never mistaken for Shadow and arrested by Gun. Their resemblance only gets a passing mention. Rouge and everything she brings to the table is not in this at all, and the most surprising to me, Shadow is no longer an artificial creation. Gerald Robotnik did not create Shadow as a weapon or an experiment or a means of achieving immortality. Shadow, like Sonic, is also an alien. I doubt he comes from the same place as Sonic and the others do, because he didn't come here through a warp ring or anything like that. He crashed to Earth 50 years ago, contained within this black comet.
Shadow, long time no see.
Yeah, this thing looks Black Arms-ish, right? It's not just me. I might be getting ahead of myself, but I'm just saying. When I first watched this movie, this development really bothered me. I know Shadow has always been part alien, I know, but the fact that he was built to serve a purpose and then superseded that purpose and found his own was one of the things I found the most appealing about Shadow. It felt like this took something fundamental away. But while it does still kind of bother me from a purist standpoint, I don't think it hurts anything in the long run. Gerald is still the head of researching Shadow. The rest of the movie still sees Shadow being othered, ostracized because people don't understand what he is but want to control him. Gun still did every horrible thing they have done to him in every other version of canon, but this time over something they didn't even pay for. Although I did like the set design for this base. It's reminiscent of the Ark Labs with a 1970s Cold War era coat of paint. Really nice. I think that's what's important about the changes they made. For the most part, they took the core things that made Sonic Adventure 2 so memorable and retooled them to both fit into the established movie universe and to make them fit more coherently into an hour-and-a-half movie that still hits all the right beats. While this retooling does require sacrifices and taking things away, that means there's also time to add stuff. For instance, Let's discuss Maria. Maria is the other thing they absolutely had to get right. If Maria doesn't work, Shadow doesn't work, no matter how cool you make him look. She both has to live up to the tragic legacy for longtime fans and earn that sympathy again with newcomers. I think they achieved this rather well with Maria, played by Alila Brown. She's not ill in this version, which I thought was a bit odd. She's just a kid who follows her grandfather on his work. I guess it's because Shadow isn't a creation built to cure her anymore, so it's just a casualty of that, but it's not too big a deal. They don't even tell you that in the actual game, you have to learn that from the manual. Instead of being introduced to her with her tragic fate, we get to know Maria, the kind of kid she was and how she connected with Shadow when he was still considered a dangerous extraterrestrial. Seeing their first meeting for the first time in the entire franchise, having fun in a way a kid would, it's really endearing and establishes their connection instantly that only got stronger over time. Most of all, this movie gives Maria something she's desperately needed. Hobbies. She loves music, she roller skates, she builds little forts for them to watch movies in, and she is fascinated by the stars but keeps her feet on the ground. It adds a lot to her, and Brown is really endearing in this part. It's all really sweet and goes a long way in not just making Maria a more three-dimensional character, but someone that Shadow could connect with. She taught him how to have fun and enjoy life in the most innocent ways possible. That montage of Maria and Shadow spending time together is my favorite scene in the movie, and one of my new favorite Sonic scenes of all time. We know Shadow and Maria cared about each other, but we never really got to see them bond outside of waxing philosophically about their dreams. And while that's nice and memorable, this shows how much they had fun, because Maria saw Shadow a different way compared to everyone around him. She showed him compassion and unconditional friendship. It's rare to see Shadow this young. We don't see much of him pre-tragedy, and it's interesting to see him get annoyed at regular things, smile more than once in a story, or have insecurities that he'll only tell his best friend. Here, he's being molded to fit a purpose and be studied without question. Shadow doesn't know where he came from and doesn't know anything of Earth outside of this base they locked him in, but through Maria, he sees the simple joys of life on this planet and how he could grow to like it. So when that shining light is gone, the world grows a lot darker for Shadow. All that time he's been in suspended animation, he was dreaming of Maria, their time together, and how it ended. When he goes back to the old facility, it's even more devastating. There's something about Shadow wandering through the abandoned wreckage that's haunting and effective, showing that it was once a home, and the carelessness and neglect by those who destroyed it. He's just overwhelmed with grief, not willing to let anyone else in because he thinks they all just want to hurt him even more. So in order to stop him from doing something drastic, Sonic has to rely on another adventure-era staple, teaming up with Eggman to stop a greater enemy. Yeah, I can't believe we're this far in and we're just getting to Eggman. After wondering for so long if Jim Carrey would retire and Robotnik's fate at the end of movie 2 would be sealed, it turns out he really likes making these movies and came back for a third time. Disheveled, disgraced, and with the classic Eggman spare tire officially completing the look.
Playing congas on my big fat belly!
It is glorious. It's kind of amazing how much better movie Robotnik gets as a character the further he falls from grace. Like, remember the first movie where he had kind of wild ideas and eccentric mannerisms, but was generally put together and respected? Well, now he's completely washed up, literally in a sense, since he's secluded in that mechanized crab of his. The only person keeping him together right now is Agent Stone, who pulled him from the Death Egg wreckage and nursed him back to health in one of the most criminally cut deleted scenes I've ever seen in my life. Stobotnik gets more canon with every movie, and this is just the beginning. But even when he's so dismissive and broken, Robotnik still has a level of self-admiration and respect. As soon as Robotnik finds out someone hijacked his technology to go after G.U.N, he gets back on his feet and agrees to help Sonic track down whoever did this. I love that he still boasts about how grand he is, but is wandering around in a tattered, poorly patched up costume. I love that Jim Carrey actually grew out his hair so Lead Majub could shave it off on camera. That is a huge level of trust that amazes me. And as much as I got really tired of Sonic's pop culture jokes in this movie, like only 30 minutes in and I'm thinking enough already.
We don't know if it's Godzilla or Hello Kitty down there. Hold it right there, Tokyo Drift. 1.21 gigawatts. Often imitated, never duplicated.
Oh,
was having an out-of-movie experience.
I never got tired of Eggmans. I do think they've refined the humor in these movies, but Carrie still takes the gold with too many great lines to count.
I need room. Think Elvis, circa 1976.
Where'd you go, Hedgehog? I wasn't finished trauma dumping.
I haven't seen that since I hate-watched Green Lantern in 2011.
Stone, why are you tied up? Do that on your own time.
If Sonic and Eggman were able to reach Shadow, I think this whole thing would have been resolved a lot smoother. Eggman doesn't really want anything to do with Shadow in this version, just seeing him as another stinking hedgehog, and aside from losing a fight, Sonic has no grief with him either. There's a very real chance that they could have resolved things with Shadow. However, while Shadow has no real direction, and Eggman doesn't have the means or energy to take over the world again, those are things they could be persuaded into from the right person.
Professor?
It's good to see you, Shadow.
The biggest deviation from the original Adventure 2 storyline is Gerald Robotnik being an active participant. Definitely a confusing change when it was revealed, but one with a lot of significance to it. First off, it is an amazing approach to the tradition of Gerald and Ivo being played by the same actor, and they have a lot of fun with it.
It's as if we're two characters in a movie being played by the same actor.
It does really speak to Carrie's skills to be acting alongside himself for basically the entire second half of the movie. This is almost seamless. Take the dance scene during the break-in at G.U.N headquarters. A pretty divisive scene overall that A, did not need to be that long, and B, is incredibly impressive. I cannot imagine the coordination needed to pull this off. I was looking for cracks in the effects the whole time and there's basically none. Plus, as much as it draws on, it is really fun to watch edits of this with new music. The biggest critique of Gerald in this movie is the tonal contradictions in his characterization. Whenever we've seen Gerald Robotnik in the past, for the most part he is thoughtful, intelligent, and reserved, if a bit too morally ambiguous. A lot of people feel like Gerald lost his respectful demeanor in this film, that he's just as cartoonishly maniacal as his grandson, and that means it's really hard to take him seriously by the end. Like I said, he and Ivo just stopped a break-in attempt in its tracks to have a dance-off. But keep in mind, most of Gerald's past depictions have been from before the Ark disaster, what ruined his life, killed his family, and left him in prison and disgrace for the rest of his days, which wasn't long in the original game. The only moments we've seen of Gerald after the disaster are scattered journal entries and his final testimony when his revenge is put into action. While he is still more dignified in those few looks into his final days, there's also a strong sense that Gerald has lost his grip on his rational thought. We've never seen much of what Gerald was like after he was disgraced, certainly not how he interacted with anyone else, so I don't think it's unreasonable to think that he could have been like this.
For all the marbles. Good. I lost mine.
Of course he's not the same as most versions we've seen. In the movie, he never died. He's also been imprisoned for 50 years, which was admittedly the most head-scratching part for me when I watched this movie. I know it's explained in behind-the-scenes stuff, but I don't think it would have been impossible to add some ADR to explain how Gerald is so agile for 110. But it was cool to see his prison cell with all the formulas scribbled on it. Like in the game. There is a bit more reasoning for why Gerald is acting the way he is in this movie, but I want to save that for later. Right now, I want to focus on what Gerald, being able to affect the events in real time, brings out in both Eggman and Shadow. Two characters that, as I hope I've made clear at this point, had no real direction, feeling isolated and obsolete, yet filled with rage without an outlet. Gerald immediately gives them that outlet. Gerald is pulling the strings from the start. He hacked into G.U.N and released Shadow. He stole Eggman's robots, which lured Ivo to him to help him, gathering the pawns for his ultimate plan. Eggman is now renewed with a sense of conquest. Shadow now has somewhere to put all of his anger and grief in the pursuit of revenge, and Gerald offers his help in getting them what they want. It's amazing how fast-paced this movie is, yet it takes until almost halfway through the movie to get to world-ending stakes. That's not a complaint, mind you. This might be a very intricate story with a lot of moving parts, but the emotional beats are what made it so memorable. The movie takes enough time to introduce our new rival and the other characters' reactions towards him before setting more severe stakes in motion. On the villain side, Eggman is constantly trying to impress his grandfather, and Gerald indulges him just enough to make him think he's succeeding, and Shadow becomes much more single-minded, lashing out more violently and being laser-focused on his new quest. At this point in the movie, it's all he thinks about, no matter what's going on.
We'll make guac.
Revenge guac.
Low-key, best line in the movie. My friends and I say that all the time now. The hero side, meanwhile, remains much more well-balanced, being smart and playing to their strengths and capabilities. The highlight for me is using Tails' tech so effectively. Although, while it is a cute callback to the previous film, it is odd that Rachel and Randall got character posters despite not actually being in the movie. Just disguises for Tom and Maddie. Wait, does that mean Tom is doing... Nope. No reason to get Marston canceled again. Again, if this was just up to Sonic and the gang, this could have ended somewhat peacefully. It would have been harder than before, but not impossible. But of course, who swoops in to make things worse?
Thank you for taking the bait.
Let's go.
Okay, yeah, we gotta talk about G.U.N. So, G.U.N is a weird case in these movies. Back in the wedding subplot in movie 2, it's implied G.U.N was established fairly recently in response to Sonic and Robotnik's battle in the first movie. But here, it's not only made abundantly clear that G.U.N has been around since at least the 1970s, but has been operating at some capacity all this time. My best guess for this contradiction is that the Guardian Unit of Nations hasn't been entirely relevant outside of a few isolated incidents. They are a tiny fragment of international defense, so there was no need for large-scale operations. Until recently, when alien creatures started strolling around the cities and playing bar games across the globe. So they've become a much more desired and active asset in global defense. Sort of like S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess? They've been around forever, but nobody cared until recently. Tracking, detaining, and in some cases weaponizing these close encounters in a way that has done far more harm than good. The effect of G.U.N's actions can be seen rather clearly in two of its most significant agents, Rockwell and Commander Olive Garden. Sorry, Walters. He has a name now. He probably always had a name, but As many suspected, Walters has taken on a similar role to Commander Towers from other Sonic media, not just as the head of G.U.N, but as someone who once knew Shadow. And instead of being some random kid who also lived on a space station, Walters was a soldier stationed at the lab where Shadow was studied 50 years ago. And his actions are intriguing, at least to me. He's good to Maria, he tries to protect the Robotniks and Shadow from his fellow soldiers, yet in the end was the one who imprisoned Shadow and buried the project. He clearly had sympathy for the guy, but just the way he describes Shadow is so depressing, but tells you everything you need to know.
Too dangerous to be walking free, too valuable to destroy.
They saw Shadow as something dangerous that only they wanted to be able to use. Realizing this does explain a lot of how much he's taken action against Sonic since he first made himself known, seeing him as a dangerous threat that needed to be immediately contained because he had seen something like him before and what it could do. I thought it was kind of odd that he sat down and trusted Sonic after all that, but maybe Shadow returning makes him want to approach things differently this time. Sadly, he dies moments after explaining all this, just when he was getting interesting. That is a writing choice made from an actor not wanting to renew their contract. Mark my words, that's likely what happened. It's possible Walters might have had some reservations about being violent toward Shadow, so perhaps that's why he sent Sonic and the others to confront him. Rockwell, however, does not share the same mild amount of courtesy. She only cooperated with Sonic and the others because of Walters' orders, but now the gloves are off. She sees the Robotniks and Sonic as equal threats. They're powerful, therefore a threat to Earth's safety, therefore their enemy, regardless of any intent. I understand this is a pretty packed movie, but I really wish they confronted G.U.N on this a bit more, to make Sonic and the gang question if they can ever really have a home here, or if they'll always be seen as a threat and hunted down. Sometimes the runtime is what it is, but we really need to have a word with G.U.N in future installments. It's pretty freaking ironic that they claim to be the last line of defense between powerful alien life and the rest of the world, when more often than not, they're the ones causing the problem. Just think about it. Commander Walters was still aligned with G.U.N when he hired Ivo Robotnik to hunt down Sonic, a freelance scientist with the government who has caused every major disaster in the Sonic films so far. It is not the aliens causing these collateral damage disasters, it's a human once on their payroll harnessing it recklessly. And what did they do when he went down that path? Wiped him from the records and pretend he never existed. Which makes a lot of sense in hindsight, because this is the second time G.U.N has exploited and placed blame on a Robotnik. To really drive this point home, we gotta talk about the accident. The scene that was arguably the most important to longtime Sonic fans in the lead up to this. People were anticipating watching Maria's death in this movie, alluding to the moment this little girl would get shot for months on end. I think people were just indulging in dark humor or waiting to pass on the trauma to the next generation of Sonic fans from these goofy kids movies, but either way, this was a really important moment. So, what happens?
Stand down! Maria!
So, a lot of viewers were a bit confused at how this was depicted. Unlike in every other version of the story, Maria is not shot. Instead, she is the casualty of a large destructive explosion. I'll admit, I was a bit perplexed at how this was framed originally too, but it did start to make sense the more I thought about it. First of all, not to be a downer here, but to be blunt, I'm not sure how much we need to see a 12-year-old girl shot by a government agent in the climate of the year of our Lord 2024. We don't need to see that in the PG Alien Hedgehog movie. And I only stand by that more as time has gone on. Second, this might be a Mandela effect situation going on here because we have never seen Maria get shot. We only know it happened through previous accounts and how the incident itself is framed. Even the gunshot from Sonic X they infamously cut out of the dub never shows the moment of impact. The only time it's ever been shown is in the Archie comics, and as someone who read that issue, it's pretty brutal. So as much as I'm sure people are gonna say this is watering down the drama, we've rarely seen it before, and we don't need to see it here. Maria's death is still as front and center as ever. However, I do have an issue with the way this is framed, and it's probably my only major issue with the movie. I kind of hate how Maria is a baseless casualty in all of this. Yes, a little girl should never be fatally wounded under any circumstances, but Maria wasn't killed because she happened to be on the Ark. It's because she was trying to save Shadow, probably disobeying direct orders from officers sent to destroy all the evidence of Project Shadow, as this kid shoots said evidence out into space. The tragedy of Maria's story is that she was a sick girl who was very kind and very brave, and used her last moments to ensure her friend's safety at the cost of her life, where he wound up in the clutches of those same authorities anyway, but he likely wouldn't have survived at all without her sacrifice. This really feels like Maria loses a lot of the agency she had before. Even if she stepped in front of him when the soldiers charged or tried to shield him from the blast, that would have sufficed, but I don't know. That's the area where Maria's death really loses something for me in this movie. All that said, the aftermath is framed perfectly. Watching Shadow and Gerald in shock over Maria's body as the soldiers close in on them, jaw-dropping, magnificent, no notes. The biggest thing the new way this is framed demonstrates is G.U.N's continued negligence, because the accident was caused by them forcefully trying to take Shadow away, and when Gerald and Maria wanted to protect their family member, they're shot at, and the bullet hits a canister of Shadow's stored, unstable chaos energy that they've been collecting, which they then place all the blame on Shadow and Gerald for. But, you might have noticed, there's one major invention of Gerald's that has not been accounted for. And no, they did not forget it. The Eclipse Cannon. You know, the giant laser capable of decimating a planet that Gerald only made to keep his funding and built a weapon so destructive no one would ever use it. Well, in this movie, the Eclipse Cannon was developed during Gerald's decades in prison at G.U.N's request. They explicitly told him to do this, and then they built it, and by the third act, it is under the Robotnik's control. To be fair though, I'm not sure it was in more capable hands with G.U.N.
I'm the government, I'm the government, I'm the reason nothing works.
Good lord, these people need some supervision or a tax audit or something. That said, the bridge of the cannon, essentially the arc in this movie, 10 out of 10. It looks perfect. They even got the Robotnik face on there, that's great. After the betrayal Gerald felt by their actions, a man who once wanted to pursue the betterment of mankind through the unknown, now just wants to burn it all. And the agency that set him on that path gave him exactly what he needed to enact it. Like I said, a lot of people feel like it's hard to take Gerald seriously as someone capable of destroying the Earth when he acted so ridiculous until this point. But let me give you guys something to think about. When he was acting like that, was he ever alone? Did he ever indulge in these antics by himself? Or was it always around his ridiculous yet brilliant grandson? Someone who could be very useful to his cause, if he grew to love and trust him. Gerald indulges in Eggman's antics long enough to get him on his side, to follow him to the literal ends of the earth, and become so important to him that he pushes the one person who was close to him away. Agent Stone. Stone gets more devoted to this man the more dependent he becomes on him, and I still can't even really tell you why. Maybe he admires his perceived vision and intellect. I mean, when Eggman stole his shirt to let out his coat, the only thing Stone said in response was,
resourceful.
He's gone from simply being an admirable assistant to protecting him at every turn. Shadow isn't the only one who got a badass entrance. When Stone enters the picture, he takes on an army of robots with Eggman's tech and looks cool while doing it. Stone's dedication and variety of skills is the only reason Ivo is alive at this point, and he's just grateful to serve. When someone else gets Ivo's affection so quickly, he's not even really jealous. He's just concerned for the doctor's well-being. Even rejected and cast aside, all Stone can think about is how he doesn't want to see him be hurt again.
It's too dangerous and I'm not there to protect you. I already lost you once. I can't lose you again.
It's pretty incredible to see how far this character has come. Stone went from a throwaway assistant who was just someone to report to Robotnik, to a loyalist who perhaps has a little too much admiration, to the only person Robotnik can consistently rely on. There's this great scene where Tails tells Stone about how he isn't Sonic's assistant, but his partner and friend, and you see how much Stone wants Eggman to be that close with him. Maybe even a little closer.
And something about my attitude renders me undesirable to all possible genders.
Shout out to Eggman, gotta be one of my favorite genders. But Ivo's been slowly ignoring Stone, not even taking his coffee, and without a second thought, rejects and cuts him off in favor of his grandfather. Robotnik never outwardly valued Stone, but he always relied on him, thinking he's dispensable when he is in fact irreplaceable. Eggman had, for lack of a better phrase, put all his eggs in one basket. He found a kindred spirit in his grandfather and a desire for a family he never had, that he trusted him unconditionally. So when the rug is pulled out from under him, it's devastating.
We're family. We have each other. Oh, Ivo. You're no Maria.
Watch this, Lise. You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half. And now!
I totally understand why people think this depiction is too silly, but it's all part of the one thing we know about Gerald after Maria's death, that he manipulated anyone he needed to carry out his revenge. All those antics were a facade. Gerald's impatience breaks through occasionally, but he recovers quick enough to not raise suspicion. He stops engaging in these pleasantries the second his plan comes to fruition. In SA2, Gerald manipulates his future family posthumously. It stings so much more to realize that someone you admired so much, someone you thought understood you, will stand right in front of you and say, "You're nothing more than a means to an end." It stings even more to watch Gerald twist Shadow's pain into something so hateful in real time. Gerald has convinced Shadow that this is a just punishment for the hurt G.U.N, and by extension humanity, caused them. That humanity should be destroyed if they destroy the best of them.
Professor, is this really what Maria would have wanted?
The question isn't what Maria would have wanted. It's what do they deserve?
Scenes like this are where I think having Gerald actively involved in these events pays off. Before, it's implied Gerald just reprogrammed Shadow in a sense to be fueled by revenge, but here, it's more organic manipulation, taking advantage of Shadow's youth, power, and grief to amplify his own cause for revenge, trying to connect with him as someone who suffered the same loss, but in reality is a tool for his own means. Because Shadow's chaos energy is essential to powering the cannon. Gerald went from seeing Shadow as a son to a battery. Shadow is convinced at this point that this revenge will amend Maria's loss. Because Gerald has poisoned his worldview so much, he'll carry out this vengeance by any means necessary, no matter who gets in his way.
What?
Shadow severely hurting Tom is where this movie took an interesting turn. Usually what happens is that Shadow shows his morality by not letting an innocent life be taken again, even as he plots to destroy everything. This time, Shadow causes active harm to the wrong person, a human Sonic loves and cares about, reminding him of when careless actions took Maria from him. This time, it's less confirming there's good in Shadow, and more Shadow starting to doubt that hurting others will make him hurt less. When Shadow doubles down on his choice to attack, Sonic is left feeling far angrier than he ever has. I gotta admit, it's a pretty clever way to reinvent the conflict of SA2 and use the movie exclusive characters to enhance the existing narrative, something I was really hoping they would do, but this was not the way I expected it to go. A big conflict Sonic has had throughout this movie is charging into situations impulsively. Since he's the fastest and most powerful, he figures he can rush in and take care of a problem quickly without waiting around for the others. It's never really worked, mind you. Charging ahead has only gotten Sonic into trouble that would have ended way worse without Tails and Knuckles around. It does come from confidence in his own power, but it also comes from Sonic's fiercely protective attitude. So when he's not able to protect his dad, Sonic feels so guilty and is so furious that he's ready to take it all out on Shadow with the power of the Master Emerald. Going so far into recklessness, he starts to become dangerous. Sonic's characterization gets called into question a lot in these films, and that could be a whole video on its own, but I always like that the Hollywood film structure allows for the chance to go places with Sonic's character that we don't see often. He can get scared, he can have doubts, and he can get angry. Very angry. None of these feelings are necessarily unheard of from Sonic, but they're very rare. That's why when they do come out in places like the movies, it's effective and noteworthy. Without Tom and Maddie around, the boys have to find those good choices on their own, and with Sonic too blinded by rage, Tails and Knuckles carry the torch. Tails tries to act as a mediator of sorts. Being the smartest and most level-headed of the three, he tries to calm Sonic down, but it doesn't work. And when it seems like Knuckles is going to use his fists to persuade Sonic, he has a much more thoughtful response. He knows Sonic is making the wrong call right now, but promises to look out for him even if he won't. It's a great way of recontextualizing Knuckles' well-known sense of honor. So it turns out that while protecting the Master Emerald is a responsibility they all bear, Knuckles still maintains his traditional guardian position as the one entrusted to hide it, even from his family. So, who did he trust to protect this ultimate power?
You will have to go through him.
Okay, Wade.
Okay, this might be a hot take, but I think Knuckles giving Wade the Emerald is pretty clever on his part, not just as a fun callback to the TV series, but think about it. Who would think this guy has one of the most powerful relics in the universe? No one would look here. It's like a criminal hiding out next to the police station. It's kind of brilliant, really. But this is still Wade, so protecting it from being stolen goes about as well as you would expect.
I will do whatever it takes. Well, I tried.
Oh ho ho, he's about to go all Fleetway on Shadow's quills. As most of us know though, Sonic isn't the only one who gets a power boost from the emeralds. Super Shadow is in the movies. He even gets the white tint to his coat and everything. I can't believe they remembered that. Yes, this is perhaps the worst kept secret in the Sonic movies thus far. They hid it in trailers, but toys hit shelves early and it's on the popcorn bucket. I didn't post my opening night selfie until weeks later because I realized too late I was holding it the wrong way. Regardless of the element of surprise, this is hype as hell. I don't know if you realize this, but aside from mobile game cameos, Shadow hasn't gone super in any capacity since 2006, back in Sonic 06, and then briefly in an Archie storyline. That's it. So not only is Super Shadow finally back with his original design, but with it we get an all-out brawl between Super Shadow and Super Sonic. These two have never fought in their super forms before. The closest we got was the short fight in Sonic X. It seems so obvious, yet it's never happened until now. But man oh man, is it worth the wait? Racing and blasting and fighting all across the globe until it shoots them back into space. This is something that can only be admired on the big screen. Mountains rupture, temples crumble, punches hit that shake the earth. It's incredible. What's even more incredible though is when it stops. There's been a lot of big anticipated moments so far, but this was the scene I was looking forward to the most. How are they going to turn Shadow's views around, and who's going to do it? Well, we don't have Amy yet, so it's not her. Sonic X had a human character do it, and I thought that would be perfect for the movies. Whether it's Tom, or Maddie, or heck, even JoJo to emulate Maria, but obviously that didn't work out. So who's left? Well, for the first time ever, it's Sonic. Which is more surprising than it probably should be, but Sonic isn't often privy to Shadow's story. He rarely digs into Shadow's past, they never really talk about it.
Looks like the party's getting started. Time to rock and roll. You up for this, Shadow?
When I was speculating about how Shadow's change of heart would occur, never did I think it would come from Sonic, because it never had. But watching it be set up, and how it's paid off, this is the only way it could go in the movies. Sonic and Shadow don't just look alike in this movie, they've experienced similar things. Sonic also lost a female family member who cared for him greatly as a casualty against soldiers, leaving him all alone with powers that could consider him dangerous, an outcast all alone. Where their paths diverged is that Sonic got a second chance at love, family, and acceptance, to grow into himself and be able to fulfill the potential he locked away for so long. It's the fact that Sonic has been given the opportunity and space to love and be loved that makes him act more understanding towards Shadow. When they meet, he is ready to fight, but wants to reason with him if he can. When they go to the laboratory where they kept Shadow, he sees the remnants of his past and puts together that whatever happened here, it was painful for Shadow. Which, I cannot stress enough, he has never done before. Thanks to Tom and Maddie, he knows what a home looks like, and he knows that no one deserves to have theirs wind up like this. The only point where Sonic gives up and decides Shadow is evil is when he hurts Tom, his own family. Unlike with Longclaw, Sonic is now powerful enough to retaliate, and he gives into that. Heck, Shadow even calls Sonic out for abandoning what family he has left to carry out revenge when he's lucky enough to have anyone who cares about him.
What kind of hero abandons his friends to pursue revenge? Abandons his family?
The movie does kind of beat you over the head with the theme that when faced with tragedies, Sonic resorted to anger and revenge just like Shadow has, but that doesn't mean it isn't interesting and exciting to watch. Just the mere idea that Sonic might just finish Shadow off for good is pretty intense, not gonna lie.
Oh man, I can't look, but I have to because it's kind of cool!
Unlike in most versions, Sonic has experienced loss and loneliness just like Shadow, but he's had the time to reflect on his pain, love again, and learn that there is a light at the end of the darkness. Once Sonic remembers that, he passes that on to Shadow.
You won. Take your revenge.
There are no winners with revenge.
It's a simple statement, but one that a lot of people who feel that hurt need to hear and know. Approaching Sonic's arc and Shadow's reformation in this way in the movie keeps their typical dichotomy of one representing light and the other dark, but gives them a common connection. It's reminiscent of an integral part of Adventure 2's story while making it totally and completely their own. It's thoughtful, beautifully done on all fronts, and it couldn't have been done this way anywhere else. I don't know if I could say it's better than this moment in Sonic X, that's a pretty high bar for me, but I think I can confidently call it a tie. Reminding the Hedgehogs that those we love leave an everlasting impact.
The light shines, even though the star is gone.
That might be the most beautifully written line in a Sonic story ever. I mean it. Through Sonic sharing his experience and showing mercy, Shadow gets a new lease on life and wants to end the cycle of pain and destruction. With Sonic, he might just have what he needs to do that. As they get back up, a familiar tune can be heard faintly in the background, the kind that any red-blooded Sonic fan knows is the overture to something truly amazing.
Get your spectral sock out, nerds. It's gonna get good.
I will.
No! Go back! God, it was getting so good! Look, I like Eggman confronting his grandfather on his own and fighting to save the world, like in the game, but the way it's edited can definitely feel like it's cutting the tension, and it's the point where I have the hardest time defending Gerald's inclusion. Also, his death is really silly, even by these movie standards. Like, Judge Doom had a more dignified death, come on. But you can't deny This climax is still really cool. The cannon is equipped with gun mechs that look just like the enemies in the game. Shadow used Chaos Spear just like in the game. Live and Learn is still blaring in the background when Sonic and Shadow strike a pose just like the one in the game. Tails and Knuckles even show up and Eggman helps them stop the laser, but not without consequences.
I did it! I did it! Look what you did!
Almost just like the game. It is an epic climax that reimagines a lot of the big classic dramatic points from the original story, right down to Super Sonic and Super Shadow blocking the Eclipse Cannon through sheer force. But again, we have a bit of a deviation, because this time Sonic's energy is depleted and he falls to Earth. But luckily he doesn't get scooped up by Eggman in a case of amnesia to go with that, because Tails and Knuckles come to his rescue, leaving just Shadow and Eggman to destroy the Ark. I remember I thought it felt kind of weird that Sonic and the gang don't have a hand in the final resolution, but I suppose in a way they do. They influence the ones who do save the day. In this situation, Shadow and Eggman are both victims, cast aside by G.U.N and manipulated by Gerald, playing right into the hands of the instigator of all of this, and now choosing to sacrifice themselves to save a planet that neither of them owe anything to, but the ones they care about love. I love that they gave Carrie a big, bombastic sacrifice that is equal parts dramatic, triumphant, and really silly. It's a great way to incorporate his worldwide broadcast, just like the one in the game, and I do get weirdly choked up at Robotnik's final broadcast, sharing his appreciation for Stone.
Stone, you were more than a sycophant to me. You were a sickle friend.
Whoa, he's bisexual. I didn't know that.
By the way, I'm bisexual. I forgot to announce it.
Part of me does wish Shadow got a farewell line of sorts, but there is a tragic beauty to him silently saving the Earth while remembering that there can be wonderful people there who are worth saving. You can barely see tears, but they're there, and oh, it breaks my heart. I love that hedgehog so much. With that, the Earth is saved, and Shadow and Robotnik are gone. Until they get better in the next movie, but it's beautiful sacrifice for now. Sonic gets a new lease on life with his feet back on the ground, spending time with and appreciating his very special family, all safe and sound at the end of it all.
Team Sonic?
How about just team?
Wait, was that a Sonic Boom reference?
Chuck another one up for Team Sonic.
How about just team?
Oh geez, we can't end the review on that. There's gotta be something more, right? We have an end credit scene again, right? Oh, thank goodness. This time we see Sonic be confronted by a metal Sonic, with perhaps the most game-accurate design in the films yet, which is astounding. And not just one metal Sonic, but an entire legion. That's a pretty wild cliffhanger to go out on. Wait, wasn't there another character introduced in the same story Metal Sonic was?
Who are you?
Oh, hell yeah! Finally, the girls are allowed in the fort. This is gonna be good. Overall, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is the best movie ever made, I'd say, right? That seems like a fair ranking, right? Okay, yes, I'm exaggerating. But it's hard not to be a Sonic fan and walk out of that movie feeling any other way. With how much I hype this movie up for myself, the big question here should probably be if it lived up to my expectations. And the answer is... sort of. There are a couple of omissions in this adaptation that bother me. Sometimes it's a little too fast-paced for its own good to highlight as much as they want, and there are some strong thematic elements that I find interesting, but go underused because it's not a top priority for the movie. Even a couple of small things, like I wish they snuck in a Sayonara Shadow the Hedgehog, you know? I don't think that would have been out of place. I also think it's weird that Shadow doesn't get to say Chaos Control once in this movie. Why do I need special DLC for Shadow Generations to hear Keanu say that?
Control.
But almost all of where it falls short is made up for with its overall commitment and ambition. Like a good Sonic story should be, it's exhilarating and optimistic, and like a good Shadow story should be, it's thoughtful and introspective. It has the same skeleton Shadow's origin story typically does, but retooled it to fit the confines of a feature-length story and the established movie universe. Depending on how you played Sonic Adventure 2, you either play through nearly the entire adventure without learning anything about Shadow in the hero path, or you find out right right away in the dark path. And a great approach to this movie from an adaptation standpoint is how they recreate that experience both ways. We know Shadow had loved ones, but not what happened to them. We see Shadow slowly become a revenge-fueled villain, but it's not until he fully gives into his anger are we shown why he would stoop to such levels. It's only once we fully understand can the common link between Sonic and Shadow be formed, and they can both heal. It's that kind of thought and care put into both staying true to the source material and making changes that I am most impressed by. Sonic movies up to this point have been about having a checklist of familiar Sonic staples you want to see on the big screen, but Sonic 3 is also about doing things you've never seen before, using the medium that has proven to be successful to push the ideas you can concoct in this franchise to new heights. The scale of these adventures is present throughout, taking place in major cities, traveling across the globe, and even among the stars, with far more action pieces and dramatic realizations than in the previous two films and Knuckles. They went above and beyond with this one, and it shows. This was perhaps the toughest assignment for the Sonic movie team yet, but luckily, we were in good hands. A lot of people know this, but director Jeff Fowler's Sonic Adventure didn't start with making these movies. He worked with Marza Animation, who made animated cutscenes for Sonic games that are the gold standard of Sonic animation to this day. And Fowler contributed to their work on Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow means a lot to Fowler, just like he does to a lot of us watching the movie, and I think that's the mindset he went into when making this. You can feel it. Shadow is one of those characters who is mainly understood by those who love him. If you're outside the sphere, it can be tough to get it. So I think we all should consider ourselves lucky that the person who was in charge of bringing the ultimate life form to the big screen and to the eyes of mainstream appeal is someone who gets it. The performances continue to entertain and keep up with the more demanding material quite well. The animation and visual effects are on a whole other wavelength, creating some of the most memorable moments in the entire franchise. It's still funny, still heartfelt, and way more action-packed. Bringing the second most popular character in the whole canon to life for both a new generation and those who loved him so much to ensure that his legacy went beyond Sonic Adventure 2. It truly is Sonic cinema. Sonic 3 to me feels like a transition period. The world gets bigger with each of these movies, but now we've reached the height of dramatics not thought possible when the plot was just get Sonic to San Francisco. Going into movie 4, I feel more uncertain for what they're doing next, but in a good way. How will Eggman return? What will Shadow be like when he reunites with Sonic and the others? What is Amy doing here? What's the deal with Metal Sonic? I'm dying to find out the logistics of how Metal exists in the movie universe. A lot of people are theorizing time travel, but I'm thinking alternate dimensions. I think they'll save time travel for if and when they get to Silver and Blaze. If they were able to pull off this story, the sky's the limit now. Sonic the Hedgehog is now such a successful film franchise, it destroyed that Mufasa movie in the box office, at least domestically.
Long live the king.
This is the peak of Sonic movies right now, and I don't think 4 will top it, but it will continue the race. The floodgates are open now. I've already seen my favorite Sonic story adapted, but I am more excited than ever to see where the Sonic movies go from here, and how they'll show any movie they're up against the real superpower of teamwork. Am I really gonna end the video that way? Yeah, probably. Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely know what you thought of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in the comments below, and what you hope to see in Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Like I said, I feel like we're in more uncharted territory than ever before, and I'm very curious what people want to see. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. And a special thanks to Hex Dawn for her cameo. She's always a delight. And as usual, a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Jinx Productions and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, including an ongoing first impression series on the Chaotix case file exclusive to the Patreon, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.